The sun hadn't even crested the horizon yet when the first burst of icy water slammed into her face. Petty Officer, First Class Kayla Reeves, staggered backward on the grinder, soaked to the bone, her brand-new camis clinging like a second skin. The laughter from the formation was instant and brutal. At the front, a cocky staff sergeant from the Marine detachment still held the fire hose, grinning like he'd just won the Super Bowl. "Welcome to Coronado, Boot," he shouted. "Wrong spot, sweetheart." The rest of the morning's instructors howled. Kayla wiped her eyes, tasted salt water and blood where her lip had split on the concrete, and said nothing. She just stood there dripping while the man with the hose, Sergeant Mike Hogan, turned to high-five his buddies. He never saw the tiny silver trident glistening on her collar under the soaked blouse. He never imagined the rookie he'd just humiliated was the new officer in charge of SEAL Team 7's training cadre, the first woman ever selected to captain an honest-to-God combat team. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now because this one's about to get good. 3 hours earlier, Captain Kayla Reeves had stepped off the MH-60 in civilian jeans and a ball cap pulled low. The detailer had warned her the teams were still adjusting to women in the pipeline, and some of the old guard were going to test her the second she showed up. Her orders were simple: observe for 1 full day incognito, gauge the culture, then reveal herself at morning quarters. She wanted to see who the real problems were before anyone could put on an act. So she'd walked into pre-dawn muster looking like any other wide-eyed ensign fresh from Annapolis, carrying a sea bag and a forged reporting sheet that listed her as Ensign Reeves, admin support. The instructor cadre bought it hook, line and sinker, especially Hogan, who'd made it his personal mission to weed out the weak ever since a female officer had outshot him on the range 6 months ago. He'd been itching for payback ever since. The morning went from bad to worse. During log PT, Hog deliberately rolled the telephone pole onto Kayla's shoulder, grinding it down until her knees buckled. "Pick it up, princess," he barked while the rest of the boat crew pretended not to notice. She locked her jaw and pushed. During the 4-mile timed run in boots, he accidentally tripped her at mile 3, sending her sprawling into the surf. By the time the class lined up for hose evolution, Kayla's hands were bleeding, her shoulder was screaming, and every eye in the formation was waiting to see if the new girl would quit. That's when Hog decided to make an example. He cranked the nozzle to jet, aimed straight at her chest, and let it rip. The blast knocked her flat. The laughter echoed off the barracks. One instructor even pulled out his phone to film it for the group chat. But Kayla didn't quit. She pushed herself up, water streaming off her, and stared straight at Hog. Something in her eyes made a couple of the younger instructors suddenly go quiet. Hog just smirked. "What, you gonna cry now?" She didn't answer. She simply reached up, unclipped the soaked ball cap, and let her hair fall loose. Then she squared her shoulders, came to perfect parade rest, and in a voice that carried across the entire grinder like incoming artillery, she said, "Sergeant Hogan, recover that hose and square yourself away. You just assaulted an 05 in uniform. You could have heard a pin drop on wet sand." Hog's face went the color of printer paper. The phone filming the whole thing clattered to the ground. Kayla reached into her cargo pocket, pulled out the folded orders with the gold-embossed SEAL trident on top, and held them up so the entire formation could see. "As of 0400 this morning," she announced, "I am the new training detachment commander, SEAL Team 7. And you, Sergeant Hogan, just earned yourself a captain's mast in front of the entire command." The next 48 hours were legend. The Commodore himself flew in. Hog tried to claim hazing was part of the culture, but half a dozen GoPro clips from students told a different story. Kayla didn't gloat, she didn't have to. She simply took the podium at the all-hands call, still wearing the same salt-stained camis from the beating, and laid it out cold. "I didn't come here to be your token," she said. "I came here because I've taken rounds downrange, same as any of you. I've carried my teammates out of the kill zone, same as any of you, and I will not command men who think courage has a gender." Then she looked straight at Hog, who was standing at parade rest sweating through his alphas, and added, "The teams don't need bullies, they need warriors. If you can't tell the difference, pack your shit." Hog was gone by the end of the week, chaptered out with a general discharge and a viral video that still gets shared every time someone Googles Navy SEAL hazing fail. Kayla? She took that same fire hose 2 weeks later, turned it on the obstacle course, and ran the entire instructor cadre through the worst evolution any of them had ever seen. Not one complained. Word is, grown men with combat action ribbons were crying by the end. She just stood there in the tower, stopwatch in hand, and when the last instructor crawled across the finish line, she hit the button and said, "Time. Now we're even." Years later, when people ask Captain Reeves about that first morning, she just smiles and says the hose water was warm compared to the Hindu Kush at 3 a.m. But every new class at Buds still hears the story. They call it wrong spot. And every time a loudmouth instructor starts getting cocky with a female candidate, some grizzled chief will lean in and whisper, "Careful, shipmate. You don't know whose boots you're shining." That's the day the team's learned respect isn't given. It's taken one freezing cold blast at a time. So tell me in the comments, from which part of the country are you watching this video right now? Drop your state loud and proud. Let's see where the real ones are.